All right, we're going to go ahead and get started. So hello, friends, and welcome to the Gridix webinar series. My name is Jason Doyle. I'm the president and CEO of Gridix. Thank you all for taking time out of your busy schedules today. We hope you and your families are all doing well and staying healthy during what has been a strange and challenging year for sure. Today, we'll be introducing you all to the Gridix Municipal Zoning Platform and how it is helping our partner cities to virtually service their citizen zoning information needs in support of business continuity and front counter virtualization. We'll then conduct a brief live demonstration of the entire platform before taking your questions. So we encourage you all to ask questions as you think of them. Just go ahead and use the Q&A module within the Zoom system here. It's either at the top or bottom of your screen. You should see that Q&A, and you can simply type whatever you have in there as it comes to mind. And then at the end of the webinar, we'll go ahead and answer all those questions for the benefit of everybody. So don't be shy, type away into the question box and we'll get those answered. All right, so let's get started. So who are we? Gridix, short for Grid Analytics, is a real estate and zoning data company that has developed a patented process for analyzing site-specific development allowance data according to zoning. But we're not just a software/tech company. Our founding team here has strong roots in urban planning, architecture, and real estate development. Max Zabala, our co-founder, is an urban planner and architect and has spent over 15 years doing urban planning and zoning work, including a stint at one of the world's leading planning firms, Dwight Plater Zyberg, where he had a hand in writing many zoning codes, both here in the US and abroad. And it was during that time which Max was often faced with questions about how the zoning applies to specific parcels, be it from elected officials, during a public charrette, or from citizens simply wanting to know how zoning applies to their specific parcel. So Max knew that most of the rules in a zoning ordinance are based in math, and given the capabilities of today's digital mapping technologies, he set out to develop a logic-based calculation engine that would apply the appropriate zoning rules to each geometric parcel shape in a city to calculate everything from setbacks, intensity, density, allowed uses, buildable capacity, and more. And at that moment, Gridix was born. So what problem is Gridix really solving for? So on any given day, many of you on this call are dealing with a number of parties that are trying to make various types of decisions. The developers trying to figure out what's possible, the citizens trying to determine their setback requirements and allowed uses, et cetera. But it takes everybody coming together to understand and move things forward and make decisions. Unfortunately, the lack of property-specific zoning record data at the fingertips of citizens, developers, attorneys, real estate professionals, and city staff makes the interpretation of zoning difficult at the property-specific level. Ultimately, this just drives all of them to give up and contact the city staff via phone, email, or even in person, as many of you know. Given the new realities of virtualization that we've been faced with this year, which many expect to be here to stay on some level, it is imperative that every city moves to digitize their zoning to establish a zoning property record database for every parcel in the city. The keystone of the Gridix platform is our computational zoning engine that I mentioned earlier that Max set out to develop. This patented technology allows us to marry an assortment of complex zoning variables from the written codes, organized in a prioritized manner with robust GIS and geospatial analysis of each individual geometric parcel shape to provide and output unique development capacity data points, attributes, and visualizations even. This is the only technology in existence that allows you to create a zoning property record database for your city. Said differently, our patented technology allows our team to calibrate all those mathematical and measurable values in your land use ordinance into our engine. And once the rules for the zone, overlay, and or PUD are calibrated, our engine applies and calculates those rules for each parcel and stores that data for use by various applications and even via our zoning data API. Now there's a lot here, so bear with me. So once the calculations are complete, your city will have the following data points for every single parcel. So it's a long list, but as you can imagine, today most cities really have, kind of the zone, maybe the subzone, and the type of allowed property, but maybe even existing use. But really, that's it. Once your system, once we calibrate your zoning into our system, we will have all these data points for every single property. On a day-to-day basis, this is going to give your citizens the ability to self-service their basic zoning questions, reducing the number of emails, calls, and visits to the city while freeing up staff to focus more on high-value tasks. It will also give staff a resource to more quickly and accurately service your citizens. So beyond the day-to-day value, it also gives your city a foundation of data to support larger scale planning activities such as making zoning changes, identifying zoning conflicts, analyzing future housing capacity, and more. Cities that adopt the Gridix municipal zoning platform will then be able to deliver their citizens the most robust suite of unified zoning information in existence. So when we set out to develop our suite of zoning information applications, we worked closely with some of our earliest city partners to identify the core problems with how zoning information is being disseminated today. In short, they wanted the ability to look up parcel-specific zoning data and uses by address. We solved that with our ZoneCheck product. For the code text, cities were most frustrated by the time it was taking their existing code publishing service to publish amendments, the lack of tools for staff, and the formatting of tables and images. We solved all that with CodeHub. Lastly, they expressed frustration with their zoning map given GIS resource constraints, the lack of useful information in the map, and the outdated user interfaces, making the map difficult to navigate. We solved that with our muniMap product. We then put all three in the same website to allow your citizens to more easily access the information they need all in one place, reducing the number of service inquiries and making it easier to do business with your city. So in summary, when cities upgrade their zoning information service to Gridix, they take a giant leap forward in providing remote data access, ensuring accurate interpretation of that zoning data, and really improving citizen transparency while helping to reduce the amount of low-value time that planners and other staff have to spend answering basic zoning questions. Now, before we jump into the live demo, I wanted to highlight an added benefit of partnering with Gridix. As I mentioned earlier, our roots are in urban planning, GIS, real estate data, and even architecture. We have a team of amazing people in all of those disciplines, which allows us to act as an extension of your city's planning team, giving you the ability to flex as needed on specific projects by engaging our team. We have developed robust housing capacity analysis outputs like this one here that we did with the City of Los Angeles in partnership with one of the world's leading consulting firms. Our technology allows us to output accurate data and visualizations to help make smarter decisions, such as this proposed train station location analysis we did with the City of Miami. There was debate around whether the station should be located, where the station should be located to support future development. There were two proposed train stations, two different groups that were advocating for each. Our team calculated the zone development capacity of every parcel within a half-mile radius of each proposed station location to show which location would support more growth. Lastly, our team can also leverage our zoning technology to help cities get a clearer understanding of the highest and best use of properties they are targeting for redevelopment, such as this train station parking lot in Oceanside, California, in which we quickly determined the necessary zoning changes to achieve their objective and created a conceptual design within the capacity constraints of the existing zoning that helped them kick off conversation with council as well as local developers. We've done many more of these tech-enabled planning projects with cities, transit authorities, and planning firms. So I encourage you to go to gridix.com for more information on these. There's much more detailed images and things as in addition to many more projects that you can take a look at to get a full understanding of our capabilities and the value of partnering with us. Today, our technology, data, and solutions have been tested and validated by both municipalities as well as real estate leaders that we're proud to call our partners and customers. Our Gridix Municipal Zoning Platform is in use by all the cities listed here and many more. Now we're going to dive into the webinar, and as just a quick reminder, the live demo part of the webinar, and as a quick reminder, please go ahead and type your questions in the Q&A section of the Zoom tools. So whether it's questions about how we get your information in there, implementation, technology capabilities, anything's fair game. So please go ahead and make the most of the Q&A section there. All righty. We're going to dive in first to each component of the platform that we showed earlier, starting with our ZoneCheck system. ZoneCheck was really designed to be as simple as possible. Again, as we met with cities, the typical path for gathering information was to go read the code, of which many of you know that a lot of citizens just don't have the patience for, and so they pick up the phone and call you or email you. And so we wanted to kind of reverse that. Their questions typically center around a specific property, and they're trying to figure out things like setbacks, heights, allowed uses, things like that. And so we wanted to make it a quick one-step process where they simply type in an address and they get the data. So I mentioned earlier, when we calibrate your zoning code into the system, we then calculate that data for every single parcel in the city. And then we store that in a database, giving you a property record zoning database for your entire city. That's what allows us to deliver ZoneCheck in a manner where they can just simply type in the address and get this data. So we give you a visual representation of the parcel just to confirm that the address you typed in is the parcel that you intended to analyze. We integrate the text and the map. So up in the top right here, you can see, and we'll get to those in a minute, you have the text, map, and ZoneCheck all in a single website, unified together for ease of information access. With ZoneCheck, you can actually jump to the map via the parcel number, or you can actually jump into the actual code text from here. This is the most common and kind of natural way that we feel like citizens should be getting their zoning information. Start at the property level and then allow them to go deeper into the text as needed to research things that they have been told about the property that they might want to jump right into. So you can jump into the text from here. We give you a little synopsis of the zone itself. But going further, you start to see that we're able to identify the overlays that are specific to this property. So this property, which happens to be the building where our office is located in downtown Miami, is within all of these overlays. In the future, we'll be linking these directly in the text as well, so that the person can simply jump right to those locations and read about them. We also have the difference between overlays and informational overlays, and without getting too far in the weeds, the distinction is really around things that may not affect the built form, such as density increase or anything like that. It may just be something that's relevant that you need to be aware of that is effective of this property. Then we get down into allowed uses. So we give you all the allowed uses. This is obviously a mixed use zone here in Miami, but the numbers here indicate the number of specific uses within each category. So we have the actual detailed uses for each category. We'll look at commercial. You can see as an example, alcoholic beverage, entertainment establishment, food service establishment. And you can see that we're also able to show what's allowed by right, by warrant, or by exception. And those little notations would be respective of how your city indicates those. Some cities say permitted, not permitted, et cetera. But we're able to identify all those site-specific uses that are allowed within that property. In a future version of this, which we expect to be out in the next couple of months, we will be adding a uses search in addition to the address search. So if a user does want to be able to say, hey, where can I open an alcoholic beverage service or a food service establishment, we will then identify all those parcels on the map, and then they can kind of dive in further into each specific property. Going further into ZoneCheck, you can see some of the data points that we showed in the slide deck a few minutes ago, outputted here. So you have some lot attributes. We do show both what is in the public record and then what we actually calculate the GIS shape to be. Sometimes those can be different, and so we show both. Lot coverage, density. City of Miami uses floor lot ratio instead of floor area ratio, but we would show whichever one applies within your city. And then building intensity and density down here in terms of allowed units, as well as setbacks. And so between the setbacks, the uses, and some of the density questions, many of our city partners say that, a high percentage of the day-to-day questions that come into staff center around those items. And ZoneCheck really gives you a quick and easy way to access that information, whether it's the staff at the front counter, being able to quickly type it in and see kind of the base information before having to go deeper into the research, or if it's citizens accessing this website directly from your city website. Jumping from ZoneCheck over into the rest of the platform, I'm going to start with the actual map and then end with the text. And so this is an example of the muniMap product. It has a various number of modules. It can start at the very basic level with just traditional map layers. It does allow you to also type in and jump to specific properties. So we have a full address as well as parcel number search capabilities here. And we'll look at that shortly. But starting on the left, you have the ability to go to the property detail level, turn on various map layers. As you can see right now, we have the entire zoning map activated, which you see there on the screen. We'll go ahead and clear that. These are all customizable. So one of the things we set out to do is try and make the mapping system much easier to navigate for citizens than some of the traditional, map portals that cities have historically published. All these menus are customizable. So, for example, environmental historic preservation was something the city of Fort Lauderdale wanted in there. And we can work with you to put as much information that's specific to the city as you want in here, making it much more easy to navigate and look at. But, whether it's flood zones, we can add any, public layers as well that might be useful for staff, and be able to see that. And as you get zoomed in far enough, you can see we have a number of different GIS layers at the 2D level that we can show there. Quickly moving through here, we also have filters. Filters is basically a property record search. So if you have to be able to identify all the properties on a specific street, and be able to notify them about something, you can actually type in every street, and it'll bring back every property that fronts that street front. So for example, if I say East Broward Boulevard, which happens to be a little small segment here, you can see it'll actually show all the property records on that street. And then I can go to the list view. It's 92 parcels. And let me close this real quick, and you can get a list that you can actually download into a spreadsheet. That's just one very simple example. As you can see, there's all kinds of different filters in here that would allow you to filter by zone, by uses, by ownership or anything. This is an optional module within our muniMap product. We don't have to activate this, but wanted to point out that the capability is there. We also have some of our calculated data points that are available to be put in here to where you can say, show me all the properties where I can achieve a certain height, or in which I can do a certain number of residential units, et cetera. So if you wanted to understand where your density is, you can actually identify the properties that have a buildable capacity over a certain amount, et cetera. So very robust, very powerful property search module there. Now shifting from 2D into 3D, our muniMap product is one of the only 3D map products out there. I just switched to the 3D, and now you can start to see the representation of the existing city in the existing built form. So this is the representation of downtown Fort Lauderdale. And what this allows us to do is take our calculated data and the shapes that we mentioned earlier and actually deliver to the city for the first time ever a 3D zoning map. And so when I turn on all the zones, what you're going to start to see is colored mappings outputted by our engine of what is allowed from a maximum development capacity within each zone in the city, effectively taking each parcel, and instead of just showing a color on the map of what zone it belongs to, showing actually how the various zones are different from a intensity standpoint. So you can see here as you get into kind of the higher density area, how the zoning actually changes. This actually helps the city staff be able to quickly and easily understand how the zoning is applying on various parcels, and potentially look at it in a different way that might help drive optimizations of zoning, et cetera. We can do various scenarios of this. We've been known to have cities ask us to do an existing zoning codes because they know they're going to change in the future, and they want to be able to show the public as well as stakeholders a before and after, because as we all know, a picture is worth 1,000 words. And if you can help people understand how a zoning change is going to impact built form, maximum development capacity, and even allowed housing capacity, we can work with your team to do all those sorts of things leveraging our technology. Lastly, we have a projects module, again, optional, but something that allows us to tie into your electronic permit processing system. In this case, we are working with the city of Fort Lauderdale to pull data from their Acela system, which is what they use, to show existing projects that are underway. And so they wanted to integrate this into their muniMap system where they can show all the projects that are in review, approved, or under construction. So the pink color represents under construction. So when citizens are seeing cranes in the sky on all these projects, they can come here and see exactly what's getting put in. So this one, for example, is obviously a 42-story, 419 residential units, and shows what the retail will be on the ground floor, who's developing it, et cetera. And then the green ones start to give them an indication of what is in review but not yet approved, so people can understand what's going on in their various areas of their city. Again, just pointing out the various things we're able to do with the data once you have this as kind of a centralized map system in service of your development services and or planning department. All right, let's clear those. And then lastly, I'm just going to kind of click on one of the property details here to show you the information that we're able to touch on here. So we're able to pull in tax record info. All this is customizable. It looks like, because we selected a condo building, you end up with multiple records. But otherwise, if it was a single property, it would show who the owner is, recent sales information, tax information from the county tax record. On the zoning tab, effectively, you're going to see here the same zoning data that you saw in the ZoneCheck application, but now it's just integrated into the map. This zoning data goes much deeper than any zoning map that any city uses out there. As you can see, most cities on their maps have the zone and maybe a subzone or some existing information about the building. But ultimately, if you want to understand what's allowable there, you then have to kind of go dive into the code and figure it out. We incorporate all the uses here as well. You can see there's a number of commercial uses allowed within their code. A lot of very detailed information. And as you go down into here, you start to see some of the calculated data out of our engine, inclusive of setbacks and building intensity, something that, again, you can only get by having Gridix as your zoning information platform. You can share this property very easily. We tried to make the map system very easy to use using modern web technology. All right, that's the extent of the map. I'm going to jump over the text for the last few minutes, highlight a couple of our pro service projects, and then open up the floor for questions. So be thinking about questions as we're going through this last component. We incorporated a zoning code text publishing system into our platform to really round out the entire system of both the map, the data lookup with ZoneCheck, and now with the text. Our intent was not to reinvent how text publishing exists on the web, but simply to put it all together in a single location, while improving on some things that our city partners told us that they were frustrated with traditional publishing services. One of those was around images and tables. Oh, I'm in the wrong one, sorry. Let me jump over here. I'm going to use the city of Miami for this one because they have a lot of big tables and big images. So around images and tables, some of the frustration was just how it formats on the web. Many of you are probably familiar with that. As an example, you can see the images here. And then if I get to a bigger table down here where it stretches all the way to the right and all the way down, these become problematic to navigate to. But we created a system where you can lock the headers like you can in a spreadsheet, so that if you really want to get over here and say, hey, what is the green open space requirements for a D3 zone, you can do that without the header disappearing above. These are small things, but they actually, from feedback we've gotten from cities, make it difficult to navigate the information here on the web. One of the other elements we did is called bookmarks. So you can highlight something and actually, click it, make a bookmark. And then you can actually organize your bookmarks by folder. We did this to improve upon the tools that staff has available to communicate again with people asking questions. So I'm going to go ahead and put this in Jason's bookmarks. We'll move it here. And there's some notes you can add, and we'll save it. What this then allows me to do is actually go into my bookmarks and share that information via a link with, somebody that may be interested in that. I may have gotten a question around something or something of that nature. So if I could then go into my bookmarks here and I go into Jason's bookmarks folder, you go to the bottom, you can see here's the table example that we just did. But the way the folders works is, let's say this was something I was conversating with the developer about. I could actually put all the specific bookmarks. They might be, related to the plans they just submitted or some kind of feedback that I need to provide. And I can actually share this entire folder. So I just click share. It gives me a link. I can email that link to that person, and they'll be brought back here with quick links to all these areas of the code that they need to, be aware of. And so we felt like that would be something that would make the staff be, more functional. A number of the cities we met with, staff had printed out versions of the code with Post-its in their most common areas. So whether it's to share with a citizen or developer, or just simply to highlight or bookmark your favorite areas, we added that to the code as well. The next thing was around editing. One of the frustrations I mentioned earlier was that the disconnect between amendments that have been adopted and the time it takes to publish those onto the web sometimes causes plans to come in that are not reflective of the most recent code, which can create friction. We felt like the space should be moving towards real-time information access, and so giving our partners the ability to edit their code in real time is a function that we've built into this system. We're constantly working to improve upon this. Whoever has editing access would see this edit button. If your account does not have editing access as a staff member, you would not see that. But if you click into the edit, you can start to see that now everything turns into a Microsoft Word style editor. Now I have an active cursor that I can start typing. I can add tables, can add images, can do all the formatting I need to, linking, etc. And then you have a save and publish where we keep versions going back. So there's a version control as well. All that combined with putting it in the same location with the map and check really, as you can see, kind of encompasses the unified zoning information resource that we believe is an upgrade and step up for cities everywhere to be able to just reduce the amount of service calls and things that are coming into the city, making it easier to do business with your city by putting it all in a single location. So with that, we're at the bottom of the hour. I'm going to quickly highlight some of the professional service projects we did just to plant that seed, just again to make sure you're aware that while we are a technology and real estate data company that has some unique capabilities, we are also rooted in urban planning and architecture. And as a result, one of the benefits of working with us is that if you're doing projects that typically would get thrown over to an architect or an engineering consultant, some of those that are within the scope and area of our capabilities can be sent over to our team of planners, allowing your team to flex as needed. Hopefully, our goal is to make you guys look like rock stars and outputting amazing information. I'm just going to run through a couple of these that highlight some of our capabilities of using our technology. This was a study in downtown Miami in which they were planning on widening the sidewalks, and the Downtown Development Authority, as well as the City of Miami, worked with some of the property owners along here to analyze infrastructure capacity. The goal was to, when the street was getting torn up, they wanted to put enough conduit, and working with the power company to put enough conduit in there such that when these buildings were redeveloped in the future, they didn't have to go back and tear up the ground again to provide the level of power needed based on the development capacity that already exists. So I'm not going to go through this in detail, but our system allowed to show, the capacity of the downtown area. Then they gave us a study area, the specific parcels that were of concern. We identified the most likely to be developed, and then segmented out the historic buildings. We named each one, and then we went through and did a capacity analysis of every single property, utilizing our technology. Getting into each one, you can see they gave us guidance on the actual use. The yellow represents residential, so this one they expected to be mostly residential with some retail and office on the ground floor. And ultimately did one for every single one of those properties, giving them a roll-up of all the data for every single property if it was built to its highest and best use, that then they could use to go and roll up and figure out what type of power and infrastructure capacity they would need in order to service these buildings. So this was an example of something that would take a traditional firm a lot of time, let's just put it that way, to do these things manually. Our technology allowed us to do this very quickly and provide very valuable data to make very accurate planning decisions. I mentioned the train station one earlier. This is the actual project plan here. It was a train station redevelopment in Oceanside, California. This is the actual site. It's essentially a parking lot right now. Here's the train paddock. There's a bus depot over here. They wanted to get the bus depot a little closer to the paddock and ultimately maximize it. It's 9 different parcels that, as you can see, we used our ZoneIQ technology to figure out what the best zoning was going to be. Since right now you can see they're all kind of in different zones and probably not the ideal zoning. So we figured what that would be and then determine the actual capacity. From that, our team was able to understand the actual capacity of various uses and did some different designs to give the city as well as the transit district an understanding of what's possible to kick off a project. This is a representation of the actual use program of what they're able to do there, inclusive of parking as well as in support of all these types. Lastly, this was a similar one that was an offshoot of that project in which we did the same exact thing for 10 different transit sites on a light rail project. And this is just taking each site and actually doing a robust zoning analysis of it. Again, our ability to do this is within minutes to run some of these through our system, particularly once we already have your code calibrated into our engine. We can output some very robust studies and even put some generalized visuals to it illustratively to help people understand what's possible there. And so we did this for all 10 sites, providing data as well as those outputs. Okay, I won't belabor those anymore, but wanted to highlight some of the rippling benefits of doing business with us and adopting Gridix as your municipal zoning platform. Ideally, we can deliver value in a number of different ways. Jumping back over here, I'm going to dive into the Q&A here momentarily. This webinar was designed just to kind of give you a quick understanding within 30 minutes or so of what Gridix is, what our capabilities are, how we can actually deliver value for you as a partner. But we understand there may be questions where you want to just kind of dive in deeper, be able to obviously talk to us and talk about what you're trying to achieve. So we encourage you to contact us at info@gridix.com, and we'll be able to schedule something with you directly. We have a question around pricing. So the pricing is an annual license fee plus an implementation in the first year. And then depending on the nature of the adoption, in some cases we'll throw in 10 to 20 hours of professional services just to give you ability to kind of test out working with our team on a specific project. The pricing model is going to range at the lowest level of adoption. If you just adopted ZoneCheck, for example, as an entry level implementation, it can be as low as $12,000 a year. ranging all the way up, depending on the size of the city and the number of staff that we would need to support, up to 100,000 a year for the largest cities. So it's typically in those ranges, again, all depending on the scope. I did just mention different forms of adoption. We talked about the text, muniMap, Code Hub, as well as ZoneCheck, the three components of our platform. It is possible to adopt one without the other. So obviously they kind of go together real nicely. So we try and encourage, the adoption of all of them, but we understand there's certain priorities. And so if a city wanted to get started with us just by adopting ZoneCheck to help support virtualization, and not actually adopt the code publishing or even the map at that time, we can certainly do those kind of things and make it very easy for you to get your zoning digitized and get the zoning database in place so that you can start moving towards this platform. So it's important to know that. The next question is around how long implementation takes. So on average, we like to quote about 9 weeks. And during that time, you're assigned a senior project manager that keeps your team updated weekly on the progress. We like to meet with somebody at least, or some designated person once every couple of weeks just to give them an update. But by and large, we try and do most of the work ourselves. I mentioned we have a team of urban planners, and so they go through your code, they calibrate the data to the best of their ability to interpret your code into our engine. And then once we feel like everything's been calculated and you have the ability to go visualize it, we'll pull whoever's been designated to work with us back in once we're ready to do user acceptance testing. And at that point, we're really just looking for the team to be able to validate what we're doing and identify and look at different properties and make sure that their interpretation is the same as the way our staff interpret it. The next question is, does our system integrate with electronic permit systems? So yes, it does, although that depends many times on those companies. So whether it's Tyler Technologies or Acela or any one of the major, Trackit or any one of the major electronic permit tracking systems that cities use, we have a zoning data API in which they can simply pass us from computer to computer a parcel number and or address, and then we will pass them back all those data points that you saw that they need for integration in whatever manner that they want to integrate. But ultimately, we are capable of integrating with all those. It's really needs to be driven by the city in partnership with your electronic permitting, company or partner. Okay, outside of that, I think that's bulk of the questions today. Hopefully that gave you some information on pricing structure. We have streamlined our calibration process to where we try and make this extremely affordable for the cities relative to the type of data and technology that you're going to gain access to for your city. So we encourage you to reach out to us and let us know if there's any questions, or if you would like to kind of do a deep dive demo yourself with us. Please email us info@gridix.com. One of our team members will certainly reach out to you just to double check and make sure you want a demo, and we can get something scheduled with you, with your team, however you want. But we are quickly adding many more cities and counties, and so we'd love to talk to you and get you kind of in the fold if this is something that you're aiming to prioritize for your city. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and sign off today, hopefully freed up about 20 more minutes of your day. I'm on the back half of this hour. Thank you for taking time of your day. Hopefully this was useful, and we look forward to hearing from you and the opportunity to work with you in the future. All the best and take care. Bye now.